Big up at the end. I love that. Catches so many people out. It did last. Well, it did keep the last time. Lads, how are we? We're back. We're back with the Scout Report with the LFC Daytrippers and of course 5yards.co.uk. We have been on a little bit of break while we start to or the lads attempt to get some licensing issues sorted with the with Ireland and the US. That is still ongoing at the moment. So the game, of course, is still just in there in the UK at the moment, but I promise you it is something that we are working on. With me, of course, tonight I have got Keith Plunkett, I have Avi, I have our friend from 5 Yards, Alfie, and myself, Gav. Lads, you're all very welcome. Alfie, how have you been? I talk to these two all the time. I want to see how you were.
Well, not bad, mate. I mean, I'm still getting over Saturday, I guess, but I think your tweets calmed me down a bit. It's going to be all right. Big picture, we're okay. And even when we're not okay, it's something to laugh at, isn't it? So I'm sure we'll all get over it soon enough.
Absolutely, absolutely. Anybody that's in the chat, you're very welcome. By all means, take part in what's going on tonight. There's 4 very interesting players for us to look at. There's 3 rivalries to look at. If you're in there, please hit the like button. Please hit the share button. If you're not, if you're watching and you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. You won't regret it. You really, really won't. This is the way it's going to work tonight. As I said, 4 players, 3 rivalries, and a little bit of a chat around 5 yards. And of course, our scout report that we've built up here at the LFC Daytrippers between the contributors, Kieran that puts in a lot of work for us. Keith that puts in a lot of work for us as well. Avi, I'm going to come to you first, and I want your first player, and I'm delighted you brought this player up because he's one I really, really, really rate. Who is he?
Yeah, it's a player that obviously is well known to all Premiership fans who have been following football the last 2 years really. It's Harvey Barnes. I thought we'd go with a safe and trusted one this week. He's 23 years old. He first caught my eye back in 2018, 2019 at West Brom when he was playing under Darren Moore, who unfortunately got sacked midway through the season. And he'd done really well there. He was playing from the left, and then he could play on the right as well. He's got pace. He's strong. Comes back to Leicester. Last season, you would say the 2019-20 season was his first sort of breakout year under Brendan Rodgers. He got 7 in 42. So his statistics weren't as great, but he was getting himself sort of involved more. He's getting more game time. And I think the manager who's been very keen in his development is Brendan Rodgers. We do know that Brendan Rodgers likes to play with, likes bringing in youngsters in. And it seems as if, especially this season, he's come in leaps and bounds. I think he's given him sort of the elevation to further his sort of development this season. Brendan has, given him the sort of arm around the shoulder like he's done with previous players like, Raheem Sterling, Scott Sinclair, Coutinho. And it seems as if it's worked a treat with Harvey Barnes and with Maddison, James Vardy. His stats have gone up. He's notched up 5 assists, 13 goals in 32, and he's 23. So he's playing well. He's been consistent this season. And I think at 23, he has got another level in which he can reach. I think he can definitely improve with his assists. He does sometimes have sort of that lack of belief when things are not going for him. I think the Leicester-Liverpool game was a prime example where the first half he wasn't getting a sniff from Trent. And as soon as he wins that free kick, which led to the equaliser, he sort of got more belief, more confidence. And then he grabs the third, doesn't it? A very cool finish when he got in behind sort of our defence and scored for the third. So he's a player that I've got my high hopes for, and hopefully Alfie will give us his price tag at the moment and sort of where we can go as he progresses through his development.
Alfie.
Yeah, I mean, he's 48 million right now, which kind of puts him in that, I guess, B-level bracket of Premier League players. For his age, I mean, to be up amongst the Salahs and the Manes, he's probably going to have to push up a bit more. But, I mean, I think, especially looking at what bigger clubs have done to players like Barnes in the past, it's about taking that output and just taking it up a tiny notch, not really making any huge differences to him. So I guess if he's the sort of player that you think can make that leap, to kind of jot a leap, there's definitely value there. But I think it's a bit late to be properly on the Barnes train, I suppose. But yeah, like I say, if you think he's got another level in him, then yeah, he could do.
I think he definitely has another. Do you know what? I think he has another 2 levels in him. And what I mean by that is, I think he's another level to go up at Leicester, because I think Jamie Vardy is massive for Leicester. But when you look outside of Jamie Vardy, you know, midfield wise, they're really good. Tielemans, Maddison, and Ndidi, right? But attacking wise, you're looking at Iheanacho, you're looking at Jose Perez, Mark Albrighton does a job, but Under is there on loan, isn't he? But I think Harvey Barnes is fast becoming Leicester's main man. Now, I don't know whether he stays there beyond, say, the summer. That they look good for Champions League, so he probably will. But I think Jamie Vardy can't go on forever. I think Harvey Barnes could end up being Leicester's main player, where they look to get more goals out of him, they look to get him more involved, even centrally. He looks like he has the build for me that he could be a forward, an actual forward rather than a wide forward. And then the second level for me is if he moves away from Leicester and goes to, you know, traditionally a bigger club. Where that is, I'd love him at Liverpool. I'll say it now. I think he's direct, he's strong, he's more intelligent than people give him credit for. I think he's a really good finisher. At 23, he's perfect for what Liverpool would be looking for in a player. So that, I think there's two levels to him. I think there's one where he really hits a pinnacle of his Leicester career and then looks to go on again. And if he makes the right move for me, I think he could be absolutely huge, because just the 7-8 years of prime Harvey Barnes left for me. Keith, do you like him as a player?
Yeah, I do, Gav, and I'm sort of going to echo what you've said there. I do think there's two more leaps for Harvey Barnes to take, and I also agree that I see him becoming more central as he goes on. I don't think he's overly quick. He's quick enough, but he's not lightning quick. I think he'd be more of a like the physicality and all. I think you could see him playing certainly in a Liverpool team as a central player. But that's the big thing for me with Harvey Barnes. You know, he's a Leicester lad, isn't he? He's brought up in Leicester. He's playing for them now. I agree what you're saying. You know, beyond Jamie Vardy, they've no real, maybe it's a bit harsh, but they've no talismanic forward players. Iheanacho is okay in flashes. Cengiz Under will go back to Rome. It hasn't really done anything in any way. Demarai Gray has gone off to Leverkusen. There's nothing really there in the attack to back up Jamie Vardy. So I think he might be their shining light as a forward player. So I don't see him moving soon. So I think he does his next chapter is becoming, you know, alongside Maddison and Vardy, the sort of main attacking players at Leicester. Again, European football looks like it will be there, whether it's Champions League or Europa League. They have a chance of playing in Europe. And then it's a case of, what does he do after that? Do you know what I mean? Like, if he keeps improving, you'd imagine the big teams are going to come sniffing. But Leicester don't have to sell.
Yeah, they're in a very strong financial position, Leicester.
Very, very strong currently. Now, I know things can change, right? But they don't have to sell. And then there's they sold Mahrez. They kept Vardy after he won the league. There was interest. He could have gone, but they kept him. If he was to stay there, I think, you know, if he has 2 good seasons at Leicester, let's say, and then a bigger team comes looking for him, and it's a bit of an insult to say a bigger team, you know, Leicester are a big team currently and have been for a couple of years, but the traditional heavy hitters come and he makes that move. I think it has to be the right time. And it's a key for any young player. And I'm going to be talking about young players as well in a few minutes, that, you know, the timing of the transfer is going to be key for certain players. I think if he doesn't move in the next couple of years, he could end up staying at Leicester, you know, staying there and being their main man. And, you know, Jack Grealish is an example of, you know, someone who stays. He's 27, I think now. He's still at Aston Villa. He can still get the big move. But Barnes could sort of fall into that category. Do you know what I mean? So it's very interesting. I'll be interested to see how his career takes him. I know what Alfie is saying. You know, if you're talking 48 million for the game purposes, it's a bit steep. But I do think he has the ability to even go better than that. So it's a good example, Avi, because it's a guy at 23. You know, when I look for players on this game, I try to go with the younger lads, really trying to be too clever and picking the ones that are very unheard of in some cases. But Harvey Barnes is a great example of one that's there, but can he make that step up? And I think it's going to be a really, really interesting one to watch. Like Gav said, I'd love to see him at Liverpool. I think he's got, the sort of forward play, the bustling forward play that would suit our style. But time will tell with Harvey Barnes.
Laura Duffy says Barnes reminds her of Jack Grealish 2 or 3 years ago. I know where she's going with that. It's that player that's just hovering there, and you're waiting for that big jump. And Grealish has made it. Paul Gormley says, "I will bet good money Barnes is at Liverpool next year, irrelevant of where both teams will finish." He obviously feels Liverpool rate them quite highly. Sorry, Avi, did you want to get in there?
Yeah, Alfie, just a quick question. Like, if we go off based on his last 2 seasons at Leicester, he's probably like a 1 in 4, 1 in 4.5, 1 point, like in terms of his goal return. Whereas if he goes in a Liverpool, and I'm not saying he's going to hit it off straight away, but he starts to do numbers like 1 in 2, and he gets like, say, he notches up 8 to 12 assists every season. Surely his value goes up quite high, doesn't it, on the format?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think Jota is the perfect example for this. I think when Jota joined Liverpool, I think we had him about 40 million. And now he's just under 60, even though he's been out for a few months now. No one predicted his output. Well, no, I mean, some people probably did predict his output. But if Barnes can kind of translate the form that he's on at Leicester into, like you say, a top 4 team, then I see no reason why the price wouldn't rise. I think the worry for me is just kind of the other attacking talent out there that you can get for a similar price, and kind of being 23 years old already. There's such a high level quality player at 23 years old nowadays that I just think there are maybe better younger options that wouldn't command such a massive fee. I know there's a couple coming up that we'll probably talk about. But yeah, it's a bit pricey for me personally, but I can definitely see why people would see a lot of potential in it.
I think, like, 48 million sounds a lot. It does sound a lot, but I think Harvey Barnes, if Harvey Barnes was absolutely smashing it for Leicester, and he's got one move left in him, and you're not too sure how much higher he can go, you'd say 48 million is high. But for me, you get performance pay, don't you? So if he's scoring goals and he's assisting, or he's winning, he's in a team that's winning constantly, he's getting stuff for that. I think his value could go through the roof, given the right team and the right circumstance. I think it could be.
Gav, Shawnee Lawson makes a great point in the chat there. Talks of Dortmund wanting them to replace Sancho, and 5 years ago the talk of an English player moving abroad would have been like red flags all over that. But that makes so much sense. We obviously have Liverpool bias and would love to see him at Liverpool, and there's other English clubs that I think he would thrive at as well. But you put him, a player like Harvey Barnes, into a different league, a different environment with such good young players, I think he just goes through the roof.
Yeah.
The only point on that, Gav, sorry, about Dortmund, is they like to buy English sort of British players really on the cheap. Yeah. Apart from the Bellingham, which is a complete exception because he's like 16, 17, but like Sancho went in there like for what, 2 million, wasn't it, the compensation fee? And then you've got like Lookman, who went to Leipzig. I think with Barnes, they'll still demand 50, 60 million. I can't see Dortmund parting ways with that much money.
But there's the windfall from
it's a good
Sancho
shout
as well. And
great shout,
There is the windfall from Sancho. So he's definitely one to watch. Like Keith says, when we go looking for players for this game, like, you try to be cute and you try to go 17, 18, somebody that mightn't even be on the database yet, and you feel that if they're going to be put on the database by Alfie and the lads over the next couple of weeks, you really got in ahead of the game. But this one, I think is a really good show for somebody that he's established, but I think he has levels to go. So it's an interesting one. We'll move on, and we'll move on to our first rivalry of the evening, and it's John Stones and America Laporte. And it's interesting. Keith's turning pages here. He's loads of notes by the sounds of it.
That was me.
Avi has loads of notes, but it's an interesting one because a lot was made of Man City's last season when Laporte gets out injured, and he's injured from September, October through to January, I think. A lot is made of City's fortunes without him. And John Stones, Fernandinho was back there. There was the other Argentinian guy that's a nightmare. I always forget his name. What's his name, Keith? Otamendi. And it was all going badly wrong for City. And you thought they bring in the centre half, and and you think he's really good, and you think Laporte, but it's been Stones that has struck up this relationship with Diaz. And when I seen this rivalry come up today, I went, well, surely it's Laporte. But is there something in this? And Alfie, I'll come to you first because you were the one that made it up, so I want to see where you're going with this. Is there something in this? Because is it a hangover of Laporte's injury maybe? Has he lost form, confidence? Because Stones, all things being equal, you think Laporte comes back into that side and plays first choice centre half, but Stones seems to be getting the nod a lot of the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me this one's most interesting because it wouldn't have been a conversation 6 months ago at all. No. It's kind of about hopping on the wave at the right time. So, I mean, John Stones is a player that I think 5 years ago you would have thought would definitely be in this sort of conversation. Pre all those, I think it was his knee injuries. He looked like one of the most promising centre backs around, but it kind of didn't work out that way for him. But we do know that players have such varying peaks. And he's only approaching, I think, 28 now. So he could still have an absolutely massive career ahead of him. And he is up much cheaper than Laporte. I mean, John Stones is up at 38 million. Laporte is still the third most expensive centre-back in the game at 47. It's only De Ligt and Diaz that are more expensive than him. So if you're looking for value, it's about spotting a player, like Stones, when he's kind of out of favour and thinking, actually, I think he could turn it around. Because it maybe wouldn't have been out of the question to suggest Stones would have a massive career at a big club. I think even City fans would be probably hesitant to guess that it would be at Man City over Laporte, like you say. But yeah, I think that's why it stands out for me, because I can't believe we're actually talking about it.
Yeah, Leo Poole says Laporte is more class than Stones. Shawnee was saying there, I'll put it back up. He says Laporte and Pepper are loggerheads. And Kev says John Stones has turned into a 50 million defender. It took a while. Now, this isn't about form. This isn't about how they're getting on at their clubs. This isn't about, it's not about who would you pick on Saturday. It's about who will give you more value. Now you see, there's a difference there in values between the both of them. Keith, is there an argument here when you're looking at these two players to say to yourself, right, which one stays at Man City, and whoever stays at Man City out of both of them, okay, that's the fella you go for? Because and the reason I'm going to put it to you this way is, I feel in the long term, Laporte, if he clears up these things with Pep, that's supposedly going on according to Shawnee, he becomes first choice. He's a better defender than John Stones. And John Stones is probably not going to find a side that will win as many games as Man City. And that's what you're having to debate your thoughts on here. Who are you picking, Keith? I think it's a very hard one, the way things are in the situation.
It's a very, very hard one. I mean, I agree. I think Laporte's way ahead of Stones as a player. I think he's light years ahead of John Stones. And that's not to disrespect John Stones. We had the Man City fan Steve on the pod a few weeks ago before the Liverpool City game, and he was saying that, Stones was going through a bit of stuff in his personal life, and that sort of hindered him for the past couple of seasons, off the field stuff, and it's all resolved and all now, and he's just more focused on his football. John Stones has been an exceptionally good player from a young age. One that, I say exceptionally good player, he hasn't always been a great player, but he's been one that you'd always see moving on to bigger and better things. He was at Everton and he didn't really suit Everton. That's not a dig at Everton, but they were never a ball-playing team, and he was a ball-playing centre-back. So he goes to Man City, it's a great move. But he's in the wilderness, and it's interesting that Pep is at loggerheads with Laporte now. He was at loggerheads with John Stones. Do you know what I mean? Last season. So yeah, these things can turn and change. These things can change and turn all the time. So Shawnee makes another great point there. He always does. Laporte can lead the defence, and that's it. John Stones needs to be in with a partner that can suit his play. Now, that being said, for the purposes of this game, if you're looking to buy a centre-back now, you've got John Stones is only 26. He's not 27 till May. You've got he's in the team. He's the one with the jersey. Would you put him as a better value pick now in the game? He's gonna get you points this season. Man City are gonna get points in the league. They're gonna get points in the Champions League. And at the moment, you can see John Stones being central to all of that. Going forward, I think if John Stones was to leave Man City, we've said this about other players, the step is down. right? A lot of steps down will be from Man City, but it's not going to be another sideward step. Whereas if Laporte was to leave, I think you're talking about the big Spanish teams. You're talking Real, talking Barcelona if they get their finances back in order, or you're talking maybe PSG. I think it's interesting, you know, if you're who could get a better move. I know there'll be the English player premium, you know, John Stones transfer to, let's say, Arsenal, who he was linked with when Arteta went there. You're gonna get big bucks to have to get him in there. Laporte, if Man City wanted to sell him, you know, it's still going to take big money. So I think they're quite evenly matched at the moment with him in the team. You'd say he's probably in the lead, but I'd take Laporte over him every time. I'd pay the extra money just to have Laporte. I think he's got a bigger ceiling than John Stones.
Avi, I'm in this mindset now that I'm trying to think, you know, if I'm picking a team at the weekend and you give me Stones or Laporte, I'm picking Laporte all day long. But I'm trying to think of like, you know, nearly mapping out their career and see what would happen. And it's the price difference that's thrown me here, because I think Stones is a better gamble than Laporte. What do you think?
Yeah, you know what? Funny enough, I like John Stones. Even before he was at Everton, he was at Barnsley, and there was a lot of big clubs sniffing then too. And then he goes to Everton, and you know, the media and everything, especially the British media, there was this perception of, you know, ball playing defenders, but he couldn't defend. He was making so many mistakes at Everton defense. But he had like the likes of Stubbs with him, you know, the old guard who you would have thought would have got that out of his game. I've been a fanboy of Aymeric Laporte since day one, since Atletico Bilbao. I thought back in 2018, I thought we should have got him alongside Van Dijk. It still baffles me to this day that he's never got a French cap either, even though he's been around since 19. It's Laporte all day long for me. I do know that there was a game 2 months ago, or it's about 6 weeks ago, where they had a big falling out, Pep and Laporte, where Pep was literally grilling him on the pitch after full time. Hence why Stones is coming. And fair credit to Stones, you know, he's come in. I think they've kept 12 out of 13 clean sheets. But I think that's the Diaz effect as well, similar to us when Van Dijk came in. Diaz has made that defense completely solid. His aura, his stature, and Stones is benefiting from it. And fair play to the lad. You know, he's knuckled down. He's playing well. He's doing the simple stuff well. You know, and that was always key in Stones' development. But for me, I think at 47 million, Laporte is still value. Yeah, I think you said Stones was at 38, Alfie. Was that right?
We lost Alfie, have we? I think he's frozen. He'll come back now in a second.
Yeah, I think he said Stones was at 38 million. I think Laporte all day long. And again, if Laporte was to be sold tomorrow, the likes of Barca, PSG, like Keith was saying, Real Madrid, they'll come sniffing. Whereas if Stones is on the market, you don't see the likes of those kind of clubs going in for him.
And it's interesting that Laporte's a day older than Stones, at the exact same age. Laporte
26,
born a day before him.
That's crazy. That's mental. David P says, Gav is just thinking like Big Bad John, obviously in reference to John W. Henry, the cheap option. No, I'm trying to think what value you get out, but that's a great show, by the way. But I am trying to think what value you get, and I think the price difference between them, you know, could make you think Stones, but overall, listen, if it comes down to it, if it comes down to Laporte getting back in favour, I suppose, or mending some bridges there, I think he gets back in the team, and I think he's centre back partner for Diaz for the next 4 or 5 years easy, and they're going to win a lot of games, and I think they're both value at that price. I really do. I think it's a very interesting one. I really do. Keith, you're sitting here now with your Santos jersey on.
I am.
You've dressed for the occasion.
Dressed for the occasion, yeah. Have to make the effort, you know, get the old Santos top on.
Yeah, no worries. I think what you're doing is you're picking players for this game, and then you're going, we players for them? I need one. I think you're picking players based on the jerseys that you need, if you get me.
Possibly.
I think he owns every shirt that there is in South America.
I know,
I don't own that many.
Once he doesn't send me an email with expenses for it, I don't really care. He can buy as many jerseys as he likes.
Is that a thing? Let me make a note of that expense.
Yeah, make it. Yeah, try. You can have a go. We'll see how you can get on. But anyway, Keith, your first player is a South American player, as always.
It is. Yeah.
Shoot.
Right. I've done this show a few times, and I'm always picking South American players. I love South American football, and I do love seeing the talent that comes through in South America. And, there's a lot of it in there at the moment. Now, the player I'm picking here is Coyo Jorge, or George, or whatever way you want to pronounce it, in Brazil. He's Santos centre forward. He's only 19 years old, but he's lighting it up over there. When I say he's lighting it up, he's only got 9 goals as a forward, but he's a young player in the team. But he got 5 in the Libertadores, their run to the final of the Copa Libertadores recently, including a hat-trick in the quarters against Gremio. He is a good player, this fella. He's, he plays as a centre forward, but he can drop in. He started off as like a number 10, so he can do that dropping in, and he can play out wide. Now, he's quick and he's direct. He's very good. And the obvious comparison with him is always Neymar. Right, it's Neymar, Santos legend Neymar, and he's similar in the sense it's a bad habit in my opinion, but it's this doing too many tricks and doing tricks for the sake of really humiliating an opponent. I don't like that. I don't mind players that use tricks to get past players or whatever, but one of Neymar's worst traits when he was younger was going back to do rainbow flicks over players' heads, is unnecessary, and Koyo does have a bit of that in him, but he's a good player. He's really, really quick, and it's an interesting one because obviously Santos went to the final of the Copa Libertadores, and a few players they've some young players, young talent in that team. They've got Marcos Leonardo's another forward there, another young guy up front, and even a young lad, a 17-year-old called Renier, he's broke into the team, but he got a bad injury. And another Jefferson Soteldo was a Venezuelan player, wears number 10 for them. They're an exciting attacking team, and this fella is the gem of the pack. He's the one to look out for. Now, he's taken the number 9 shirt at Santos this season. He looks like he's going to maybe stick about in that, but this fella is seen as a potential superstar. Now, the path trodden from Brazilian forwards for superstars is a very mixed bag. So even we could even limit that to the path trod by Santos forwards to Europe is a mixed bag, because they sent over, obviously Neymar came out of there, broke on the scene, and everyone wanted him, and he was a star from the minute he went to Europe, to Barcelona. And then there was others like Robinho and THIAGO came through as well, from the Santos teams in the early part of the 2000s. And then others came along, and the comparisons that really stick out for me is another Santos forward that went was Gabriel Barbosa. Gabigol went to Europe very young, and he never really done it. He went to Inter Milan and it just never settled. And he went back then to Flamengo and was banging in goals, and he's a really, really good forward. He just made the move too soon. Another one then is Rodrigo, who went to Real Madrid a couple of years ago from Santos. Hasn't really done it yet, but it's one to watch. He's one to watch. But this fella is tipped to be the next one in the line of Brazilians that's going to Europe. It's he's been linked with Inter and Real, two big teams, and two teams that the players I've mentioned have gone to. Gabigol goes to Inter and it doesn't work out, but they've taken my man Lautaro Martinez, and he's lit up at Inter, so it could be a place for him to go. But Real Madrid have consistently now, they brought in Vinicius, they brought in Rodrigo, and then they brought in Renier as well. Now he hasn't worked out yet. He's gone to Dortmund, hasn't done that, but he's one to watch as well. But it seems to be a career path that's well done by Brazilians at the moment, and it's one that Real Madrid look to exploit. Now, they're not going to get this fella cheap, but Real don't seem to. I know they're in financial problems, but they seem to be happy enough to pay big enough money for these young Brazilian stars. Nearly the gamble that the risk is worth the reward, and I think he could be the one, the next one off the carousel. He's a really good player. Like as I said, he's only scored 9 goals in the senior football, 4 in the league and 5 in the Copa Libertadores. But when you're it's like going into the Champions League and bagging a load of goals. Do you know what I mean? You stand up and take notice of that sort of thing. And this fella really is one to watch.
Yeah, it's and before I get to Avi, I'm going to go to Alfie. Ko Jorge or whatever, George or whatever way you want to call him. Is he on our database, Alfie?
He is, yeah. I mean, ever since Keith started doing this show, we've been slowly chipping away at the Brazilian ceiling.
Trying to double bluff, like it.
He's the second most expensive, just behind Gabriel Veron. So he's 37 million right now. So I guess the main question I would have for Keith is when he actually sees him making that move, because I think with a price tag like that, you want them to be chipping it away straight away. But of course, the worry is that with Real Madrid being, I mean, obviously they're just petrified of missing out on the next Neymar. So we've seen it with Vinicius, we've seen it with Rodrigo. They go for these kind of Brazilian prospects way too early and scare them into being worse players than they are, in my opinion. So, I mean, first of all, I guess my question is that a worry for you? And then second of all, do you think he kind of can have the patience that maybe Neymar did have that stood him in good stead further down the line?
Yeah, that's it. It's a great point, Alfie, because it's the one thing you've said it there. I said it a minute ago. They go too early and they can just sink, and a move to a big club at 18 years old. Vinicius, I think, signed for Real Madrid after never playing a game for was it Flamengo or Fluminense or something, and it was like huge money. They can't sink or swim. Now, as idle as Neymar, and the patience, that's the thing with him. I don't see him moving for a year or so. So it's a case of getting him and just holding fire. What way does the game work around that? Is it something that you do? You get a player in and try and get ahead of the curve.
Yeah,
when he does come, he can blow up.
I mean, yeah, as long as his price doesn't drop, I guess. I mean, right now, I guess with a price forecast like that, I don't really imagine that our scouts are anticipating that he'll move straight away, because I imagine the price would be slightly higher. So if you think it's going to stay at 37 million for the year or so before he moves, then you've got nothing to lose by doing it now before those links to the Inters and the Real Madrids kind of become a bit more concrete, because at that point, obviously, everyone else starts to catch wind, and that's when you do kind of see a rise. So you'd want to benefit from that.
Yeah. How much did you say Gabriel Veron was, Alfie?
48 million for Veron.
Yeah, that's another super talent.
Avi, KO, do you know much of him?
Just from the conversation that Keith put in the WhatsApp conversation that he was going to scout this player, and he's hit the nail on the head for every sort of Neymar that we have. And like Real Madrid, they want to have sort of first dibs. They're being advised pretty wrong. Like for there's players, I used to be bad for this because I used to put a jinx on every Brazilian player. I remember Keith, you must remember Harrison, who went to Barcelona from Palmeiras.
He'll dribble.
He had such a great record, and then all of a sudden he's vanished. Alexandre Pato was another. Lucas Paqueta. There's so many.
I liked Pato.
Pato the Duck. Yeah, he went to Milan, and then he had some terrible injuries, mind. But it seems that for every player that comes through, there's so many in that sort of conveyor belt that don't make it, and unfortunately it's the advisors who send them out to Europe, or they've got like these clauses where Real Madrid, I wouldn't be surprised if Jorge, if that's how I'm pronouncing it, Keith, if there's a deal already in place that Real Madrid have got like that first sort of clause in grabbing him before anyone else does. But he looks to a player who comes alive in the opposition box. He does have that little buzz, and he seems to be good on set piece as well, Keith, from what I saw.
Yeah.
Another player, Curlon, the seal dribble. I'm sure you remember, Keith.
Oh yeah,
he was another one that everyone thought, and then he went to Inter and it didn't work out. But no, I think what you've said, I think you should stick around at Santos for maybe a year or even 2 years, and then make the grade out to Europe.
Well, Kev O'Sullivan says there the path that Suarez took is probably one more South American should be looking at. So he goes to Groningen, I think they're saying in the chat there. Yeah. Then he's on to Ajax. Then he goes to Liverpool. Then he ends up at Barcelona. And you do get this thing where South Americans dream of playing for Barcelona and Real Madrid. All right? And that's fine. But I think that's a great show. If you... Not only for maybe the possible destination, the ultimate destination, if it's Barcelona or Real Madrid, it could be Liverpool, it could be United, it could be anyone. But for the player himself, he arrives in Holland, at a Groningen or whoever, at 20 or wherever it might be, and he's not being thrown into the absolute, melting pot of the massive clubs. And then, listen, they're very young, 18, 19. If they move again, they could still be looking at, like if they were to do Groningen, Ajax, Liverpool, Barca, right? They could arrive in Groningen at 19, they could be at Ajax at 20, Liverpool at 22, and they could be at Barcelona at 24. And they're well before the prime of their career. And everything are much more grounded, much more experienced, and much more able to deal with life in different countries. You know, the kind of way. I think it's a really good.
Do you know
show.
what the problem with European with Brazilian players especially, Gav, is that there's no planning with them from a young age, and there's no guidance for them from agents and that sort of thing. They never. It's all about Davi's dead right. It's all about the money. Like they get sent over with, nearly forced out. Players have been forced out from Brazil and just sent over to Europe, and they've been destined to fail. And it's Suarez goes from Nacional in Uruguay, and then he goes to Groningen, and it is the right way. Sean, he's saying Ronaldo R9 starts in Holland as well. It's a great learning curve, great breeding ground. Yeah, PSV. But then you've got you see so many Colombians that go to Porto, or Brazilian players going to Porto, and Brazilian players going to Shakhtar, but they're never the sensational players. They're the ones that, okay, they're not the main ones. They'll go here and be parked off, and they might make it, and they're using that as the stepping stone. The really ones that are classed as elite, they get just forced to move too young, and they can sink or swim, and more than likely they sink.
Yeah, it's an interesting one to keep an eye on, because like you said, Santos have a record for these players being shipped out and into Europe and stuff like that, and of course Real and Barcelona look to go heavy on these players. But I don't even understand why Real and Barca haven't got an agreement in place with other sides in Spain or whatever it might be, to say, listen, we're bringing this player in, but Holland is a great example, I think, where you go, listen, we're bringing this player in, but we want to put him on loan to you for 2 years, or a year, and then we'll assess it. And I think it's not only, you're not going to miss out on much from between 18 and 20, but like you see their development, and they can develop under the radar a little bit. But I think he's a really interesting one to watch. I think the price is decent. And like I think you're a little bit ahead of the curve there at that price, because like you said, if he makes it, and there's examples of people that haven't, but if like he seems to back this player, and if he makes it, that'll look like pittance, Alfie, at 37, won't it?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I think it will. Okay, on to the next one, and it's the next rivalry. And Alfie, I'm going to come to you first. Jude Bellingham and Gilmour off Chelsea. Billy Gilmour, what a name. Alfie, what made you come up with these two?
I'm not really sure. Maybe it's that I like the voice my support for Scottish players against English players.
Okay.
Could be as simple as that, but who knows? Maybe there's a deeper meaning. I think, if I'm being totally honest, it's more the career paths. I think they couldn't really be more different in the moves that they've gone for. Gilmour, when he was coming through Rangers, he moved to Chelsea for around 500k, and the new manager at the time, Pedro Caixinha, who is kind of infamous amongst Rangers fans, sat him down and said, we really want you to be part of the first team makeup for years and years to come. Renew your contract, and you'll be a part of the first team next year. But he didn't. He went to Chelsea. I think Malky Mackay at the SFA said that he wanted Gilmour to go out on loan straight away. It's not his call. Malky Mackay shouldn't be in charge of anything really, let alone Billy Gilmour's career. So he stayed in the Chelsea makeup. He kind of got a few cup games here and there, kind of curtailed by injuries. But he's still there now, and he's still learning from the seniors. Whereas Jude Bellingham was at Birmingham, obviously, and immediately went to Dortmund, which is kind of a far step from Chelsea, knowing that he would get a lot more opportunity than he would if he stayed at an English team. So, I mean, clearly it's working quite well for him. I saw a video of Haaland suggesting that he was Dortmund's Gerrard. I kind of want that to be the case. I think that would be good fun. But yeah, two players that have taken completely different paths, and it could be dividends for both of them theoretically. I think, especially Gilmour learning from players of the quality like Jorginho and Kovacic, who are good enough that he can pick up lessons from, but not so good that he can't displace them. It's kind of the perfect environment for him right now. Big hopes for Gilmour, who sits at 42 million, where Bellingham is up at 61. So clearly our scouts do think there's a fairly big gap.
Yeah, and I think the big gap, the scouts are obviously looking into a lot deeper than me, but when you tell me them prices, it feels a bit high for Gilmour, but I think Bellingham seems about right, and the reason being that, and I think that the difference you have there is because it's a move to Dortmund. I know Chelsea are a huge club, but this is one that stood out. Do you know what I mean? Like if Billy Gilmour tomorrow moves from Rangers to Chelsea, and on the same day Bellingham moves from Birmingham to Dortmund, nobody's talking about Billy Gilmour, because it's a very small move to a Premier League side that, let's be honest, they have a record of loaning out players all over the place and just upping their value and then bringing them back and selling them on, and they just do that with players all the time to fund themselves, or fund part of what they're doing. Whereas this Dortmund one went, whoa, because that was decent money, wasn't it, to Dortmund?
35 million?
25 million, yeah.
Yeah, so
plus
it's
crazy add-ons.
Yeah, so it's absolutely insane. So the money is probably right. Keith, I like the look of Billy Gilmour, I'm being honest. Bellingham just seems like an extra special talent.
Yeah, it's a very harsh comparison, this one, because I'm a big fan of Billy Gilmour. I see he's getting a bit of stick in the chat there, that he's not on Bellingham's level. And look, he's not, but that just goes to show, as you touched on there, Gav, the move is key, isn't it? You go to Chelsea, where they have an excellent youth system in Chelsea, but he didn't go there to the youth system. He's in with the first team now, and the manager turnover at Chelsea is always a worry for the young player. A manager can come in and like you, and he might be gone in 6 months, a year, and then there's a new manager and it sets you back. And look, that can happen anywhere, but Chelsea are sort of notorious for chopping and changing managers. And now I know, look, Jude Bellingham's gone to Dortmund, and he's got a second manager there this year, and Marco Rose is going to be there next year, so there's a big turnover of managers as well. But he just looks ready, doesn't he, Jude Bellingham? I think he's anytime I've seen him, a friend of mine's a Birmingham fan, and he's been raving about him for years. Like, this fella's want to watch. He's just leagues ahead of him at the moment, and he's playing Champions League, and he's going to get action in the Champions League and the Bundesliga. Gilmour made his debut, I think, against us, wasn't it, in the Cup?
FA
And
Cup,
he was
yeah.
excellent. He was excellent that game, and I've seen him a couple of times since, and I think he's a very, very good player, because the way he plays, he's not afraid to get the ball. He wants the ball. I love that with young players. Do you know what I mean? Give me the ball, especially in centre midfield. Give me the ball. I don't care if I'm under pressure, and I'll make something happen. I think it's an excellent trait for a midfield player. So I look out for Billy Gilmour. I think he's one to really watch. And if I can just throw something else in, Kev O'Sullivan's in the chat there, and a few other people will probably, they look at Gilmour and they see something or they don't. And a lot of people will use, like, computer games, FIFA, Football Manager and all for these things, and that's how they'll learn about players. But it does help with people. People will buy a Billy Gilmour on their FIFA Ultimate Team, and they'll stick him in there, and they'll become attached to him. Now I don't, but people can do that, and that's how you get maybe an unfair expectation of a player because he does well in FIFA, but they usually spot on with their their ratings. They base on a lot of things and all that, but you can get an unfair read on a player, is what I'm trying to say, when you're going through the video games. I think Billy Gilmour is one. He's one to watch, and for the price difference, what was the difference there again, Alfie?
So it's close to 20 million. It's Gilmour at 42, Bellingham at 61.
See, the way I'd be with this is I'd always be looking at the cheaper option and play the long game, and that's not very good for the purpose of the game. Although I'm saying that I was going for Laporte over the cheaper John Stones, and centre backs. How many points are they gonna get you? But I like the looks of Billy Gilmour. I'm not saying he's anywhere near Jude Bellingham's level. He's not, but he'd be the type of player that I would scout and look to get into the game and hope that it works out. Do you know what I mean? And look for the 20 million somewhere else, you know, and that's how I'd sort of, I think Bellingham is too highly priced at the moment.
It's Avi. I'm Bellingham. I think is a really special talent, but when you sign a player that young at that amount of money, you kind of have to play him. You know, like especially a club like Dortmund who like they promote youth, they play them and stuff like that. And I think he has got levels to go. I don't think that I disagree with Keith. I think that price, as you have to think of his price relative to his career and relative to where he is. So it doesn't matter if he's 100 million now. You have to think, could he double that? And that's what you have to think in your head. You know what I mean? But Avi, just on Gilmour, I think he's a good price, but and I think I would be more tempted to go for Gilmour if I thought he was going to exit Chelsea. And what I mean by that is, if you look at him and go 42, I think Alfie said, if I remember right, if you look at him at 42 and you go, he's not really getting a game, will Tuchel fancy him? And then something comes out that, you know, Leicester want to take him, or someone like that, and you go, and they're on the up. I think that might be the time to pounce. Have you? Do you think I'm right, or do you think I'm just mad?
No, you're right. Like Billy Gilmour, I remember a certain youngster at Chelsea in midfield, Josh McCracken. We'll all remember him.
Yeah.
He was a really good player, really quality player. Went on a few loans, but Chelsea were like, no, we're adamant we want to keep him. Went on a few other loans, and now his career, I think he's at Brentford or somewhere. Didn't hit the heights that he should have. He was a cracking young talent. Billy Gilmour, I think Keith mentioned, he was really tidy against us in the FA Cup. Nothing fancy, but you could tell that he's a really mature player. He had a mature head. But he's played like 18 games and he's 19. This is the stage where he needs to be playing football regularly, like going out on loan, experiencing what's out there. You thought that maybe under Lampard he might be getting more of a chance, but 7 league games this season, or I think 5 league games, and he's had a few cup appearances. It is that critical stage where he needs to go, where you look at Jude Bellingham, you know, a regular at Birmingham at Championship. And don't discount the Championship, because the Championship is a tough league to succeed in. You know, it's a really tough league. And he was, 16 when he first came through? Got his move to Dortmund, and he thought, will he get enough chances? But he's in and around that Dortmund team. He's playing. He's had his fair share of games, especially with the manager change too. Billy Gilmour needs a move away. He needs a move away, whether that's a Championship move or a Premiership move to, like I think Keith mentioned, Southampton. He needs regular football to fulfill his potential, because you got to remember, Scotland, especially when there's a player coming through, they will hype him up. And when he comes to the Premiership, no, and the hype is justified, but these kids need to be playing. You know, these kids need to be playing. When everyone talks about Scottish young players that he's coming through, I always think of Ryan Gold. Came through from Dundee and went out to Portugal. I think at Sporting Lisbon. Sporting Lisbon, and then now he's at Farenese, and he was an amazing talent. But there was all these comparisons to Messi because he was left-footed and that, and it's so unfair. It literally kills a kid's career. And if I'm going off topic, just let me know, Alfie. But these kids need football, and they need to send this guy on loan, because Tuchel will have money in the summer, and he'll probably think, is Kovacic and Jorginho what I want, or Kante, are they what I want to put my ethos on this Chelsea team? Probably not. He will go out and buy a £40 million midfielder or a £50 million player. Where does Gilmour fit in then? He needs football. 19 is a critical stage at a young player's career, and I would love for Billy Gilmour to make it, but just not at Chelsea, obviously. But go out there and play football. Get your advisors on the call to the managers and Marina at Chelsea and say, look, we need to send our kid on football, send away for a season or two and experience first team football, where he's getting regular games, where he's getting in the nitty gritty, during the Christmas period in the Championship or in the Premiership. Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah, especially like you say, under Tuchel, who's going to have money, and he's on an 18-month contract right now. I don't think he's going to be too fussed over Billy Gilmour's career. I think for me, it's just about, if he does move, what that move is, because I think it's all fine and well saying Southampton and co, but for me, I don't think the gap between him and Bellingham is too big. And I think if Gilmour was to go to a Bundesliga team right now, say, I don't know, a Leipzig or a Leverkusen, I can see him jumping into that team within a season. I don't think he has to take that kind of middleman of a Premier League team, and I really hope he doesn't go to the Championship, because I think his level is so much higher than that. I mean, he did give us the runaround.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I would if I'm investing in Billy Gilmour in this game, I don't want him to go on loan at the Championship. I don't want him to go on loan full stop. When you leave Chelsea on loan, you've gone. Forget it. You're only delaying the inevitable for me. I think it's a great show somewhere like Germany or France or anywhere like that, because he's a player that whenever I've seen him, very tidy, gets around the pitch. He's small, but he's physical when he wants to be. I think he's a really, really, really good player. But I think, like I said with Bellingham, you're looking at 60 million going, whoa, how big is that? But look where he is. He's 18 years of age, and he's at Dortmund. So that could go anywhere. Like 30 million at Dortmund, he could be £100 million player in 3 years' time, 4 years' time. Gilmour's the same, 42, and you look and go, you know what, he made a clever move. He went and he's playing for Monaco or whoever, and he's tearing it up in Ligue 1, and next thing you know, such and such are looking to take him back to England at, mad money, and there your value's gone up. So they're both very interesting, and I think within the game they're very interesting to keep an eye on for different reasons.
They're very smart, aren't they, with their deals for English players, because people are saying it's a big risk bringing in a Bellingham for 30 million. They'd say seeing him with Sancho, they know when they move, they're going back to England, and they're not stupid. They know there's an English premium and that Premier League clubs, if you succeed in at Dortmund, you're not going to Southampton, or you're not going to West Ham, you're going to Manchester United, you're going to Chelsea, you're going to Liverpool, Man City, and they know they're going to rinse them for money as well. So it's a big cash move. I'm more indoctrinated by Moneyball and FSG, Gavin. I'm going for the cheaper option. And
I know. Well, you are an FSG apologiser, of course.
I am.
The biggest one around.
Very well known.
Let's move on. Avi, your second player.
Yep, and I've gone with the American kid again. I'm going with Conrad De La Fuente, who is playing at Barcelona. He's American-born, went to America with his family, went to Spain with his family when he was 10. His father got a job in one of the consulates, embassies in Barcelona, and he's been at the Messiah since 2013. Dual nationality. He got his first game for Barcelona in November 2020 in the 4-0 win against Dynamo Kiev. And then he played against Wales as well with the US national team. Now there is a little bit of hoo-ha going on because he has got dual nationality. The Spanish want him as well as the US. But so far, he does look as if he will represent America. And he's a player that's really gone sort of under the radar slightly at Barca, purely because of the excellence of Ansu Fati, Trincao, Pedri, and he's just a little bit below that level. He's been at the Barca B team, and he's coming through. He's a skillful player. I just love the look of him. He can go left or right, very tricky. He's got a great right foot on him. No one even knows what foot is stronger. It's either left or right, a bit like Greenwood. Both, he can go switch both ways, and he's a player that I'm not going to sleep on. While the Fatis and the Trincaos and Pedris are getting their little bit of plaudits, and the Rui Puigs, I think this guy is not to be one just to be slept on, and it'll be interesting to see what happens in the summer, because I don't believe Koeman will stay, especially after the presidential election. The next manager that comes in is crucial to his development, and I think this guy, hopefully Alfie's on your database, or he might not be one of those unearthed gems, but he's one that I'll definitely be purchasing and just keeping him as a forever hold in my database.
Good stuff. Alfie, is he on the database?
Yeah, I mean, good news, because I think he's like 6th or 7th most expensive under 21 at Barca. He's only 22 million. So, I mean, this is
that's done.
Yeah, if you really do bank him that highly, you are far ahead of the curve. I mean, you've got Mingueza, Trincao, Araujo, Puig, Dest, Pedri, Fati, all more expensive than much more so. So absolutely, if you back him that highly to have careers similar to those players, then yeah, why not?
19 years of age, he's a winger. Like Avi says, dual nationality, so there will be a bit of pushing and pulling on between Spain and America over this, but obviously the kid himself will make the the decision and his family and stuff like that. Keith, that's thrown me. 22 million has thrown me now. Because I've heard this kid's name a couple of times. I think Grizz mentioned it before to me as well.
We were linked with him, Gav. He was going through contractual issues with Barca, and he knows that we're on the radar. His father knows that we love the youngster. So it's something that could develop over the next 2-3 years. He has signed a new contract there now with Barca. It's a 3-year contract, so he will be there for the foreseeable.
Yeah, okay. And it's interesting because, like, you know, to look at a player like that, 19, winger, American. When you look at we've Gio Reyna, who we spoke about on this show, haven't we? You have Pulisic at Chelsea. They seem to be putting out these wingers now. I know he's at La Masia since he's 10, but Keith, 22 million sounds like it's a very low risk investment.
Yeah, talking my language now. Kev O'Sullivan says there the boys all went ching at the same time. I think he's dead right, because when I heard that 22 million, I'm like, ooh, because we say this about every player, and I've said it about numerous players here. The next manager is key, and Ronald Koeman will not be there next season. We all know that. The presidential elections are going to happen at Barcelona, and if someone like Xavi was to be brought in to Barcelona, I think the days of Dembele's and Griezmann's are probably going to be a thing of the past. I think it's all going to focus back to La Masia. Maybe not totally, but I think if you're in there and you're part of a front line, right, he's got Fati ahead of him, he's got Trincao ahead of him, he's got Pedri that can play off the wings ahead of him as well. But you're in there in that shake-up. I think there'll be games to be had from him, and I think it's a very, very appealing and interesting one. Look, he's got 2 games already in the Champions League. They highly rate him there. I reckon he will get more games as the season goes on. Barca, they're not a great team. They're not going to win La Liga. They're not going to win the Champions League. There could be opportunities for him, and it's another case of the manager, that the next manager that comes in the door is going to be a key. You know, if Barca were to, let's say, as I said, bring in a Xavi, focus on youngsters. If Barca were to bring in, I don't know, a big name because they're idiots and they do the wrong thing over and over again, and his plan is buy the players, buy the forwards, buy this, buy that, well, then he could fall away there. But I think everything you hear and the fact that they haven't got a washer, I think Barca will be looking more on their youngsters and leaning again on the talent that's already in house. And this fella is really, really good. I think he could be one. And he's look, you get a few games at Barca, you get a good move out of that as well, and it might be obviously a step down, but then they quickly make the step up again. You know, you might drop down a couple of levels, but then be back up in a top team in Spain. So he's definitely one at that price. That would be that's the money I've saved on Jude Bellingham being spent wisely now on
you're plotting all this, and we will get into before we finish the show, we will quickly go through our scout reports and how we're working on them and the sort of portfolio we have on scout reports at the moment. But it's 22 million is very, very inviting for a young player that's at Barcelona. American winger, it ticks a load of boxes for me at 22 million. So he's definitely one to watch. Let's move on, and we're going to go to Keith. We're going to come to you for your second player.
Okay. My first player was Coel, and if you thought that was obscure, you haven't seen anything yet, because my next player is again 18-year-old South American, but he's a Uruguayan. His name is Matías Arizo, and this. And
can I stop you there? Yeah. Alfie, is Matías Arizo on the database?
Never heard his name.
Yes.
Yes. Absolutely.
Get on and check him. Matías Arizo, right? He's I keep saying it, and you'd be bored here. You know, I love South American football, and I love looking at young players. And Brazil isn't really a country that I'm overly interested in South America. I love Argentinian football, and then I love Uruguayan football because it's a very, very similar game. You know, the La Plata sort of rivalry between Argentina and Uruguay, the similar type of players. And you know, I love Luis Suarez, right? Luis Suarez, one of my favorite players. bit of a shithouse, but a great player. And I think over the last 20 years, the Uruguayan forwards, they've had that sort of trident of Diego Forlan, Luis Suarez, and Edinson Cavani, and it's a phenomenal strike force to have. There's been pretenders that have come through, but Matias Arizo, if you look him up, they're raving about this kid, right? He only turned 18 in November, right? So he's not like he's an old header, and but he plays for River Plate Montevideo, so he's not one of the big teams in Uruguay, and he plays there. And basically, they've been the two big teams in Uruguay are Nacional and Penarol, and they've been told to Jurgen, don't even inquire about this fella because there's no chance of getting him. This fella is going to Europe. He's got an £18 million is the fee that's being set by the president of River Plate Montevideo. And if
don't give Alfie too much info. We're on a good one here.
That's what they're saying now. But if you look this fella up, the comparison all day, every day, it's Luis Suarez. It's Luis Suarez. If you look at the videos of this fella, Shawnee says it there. Sevilla want them. Sevilla and Benfica are the two that are really linked with him, and I love their moves. I think they're great development moves, developmental stepping stones. It's the opposite to what will happen with Coyle, because he'll go for the big team and could sink. Whereas I think Areza, whenever he goes, and I think he goes maybe sooner, is one that could make that move to a Benfica, to a Sevilla, and can really flourish there. But this kid is like Suarez, he's absolutely brilliant. When I say he's like Suarez,
he's a bit stocky, he's a bit stocky like Suarez, isn't he, from the top?
It's only about, he's not tall or anything, so he's stocky. He's a little, I think his nickname's the Buffalo. So he's a stocky forward, but he's quick as well, and he gets across the ground. But the thing that reminds me of, he drops deep all the time, so he's always coming deep for the ball, and he makes lovely little passes in behind the defender. So he's intelligent. He's not just a target man, he's an intelligent player, and he dribbles like Suarez. That sort of kicking it off his shins and sort of through. He has that similar, like, I was looking at it and I couldn't believe the similarities when I really took a deep dive in him, because I'd seen him. He first came on my radar. This is I'm gonna sound like a right wanker. I'm not gonna lie. He first came on my radar. I seen
wouldn't be a first.
The under-17 South American Championships, right?
Yeah.
I'd seen him in the South American under-17 Championships.
Did you clear out the sitting room and go, listen, everyone out? The championships are on.
This is a late night job. These are this isn't interfering
in a darkened room.
With Emmerdale or anything, so I have free reign when this goes on. But he was banging in goals, and I just thought, like, he looks like, Shawnee says, built like Aguero. Very good comparison, built like Aguero, and he has that sort of that type of game, he'll get in around the box, but he's much better than just being a 6-yard predator or poacher. He can strike it from distance. He has it all. Now, this kid, like I said, he only turned 18 in November, gone, but he's got 20 goals in 50-odd games for River Plate Montevideo. And, when you're in them leagues, they're not the best quality leagues, but they're physical as fuck, you know what I mean? Like, and if you're a young kid baiting in goals there, you're not you're not sauntering through these games, you're getting the shy kicked out of you, and you're learning the hard way. I just think this fella, to me, is one of the best talents in world football that I really, really excited about him. And he's not on the database yet, Alfie. So, when we get him on there, be kind. And remember where...
You've built him up too much now. Alfie's going back to tell his mates, and he's they're going to knock him in at 50 million quid.
It's 50 million,
yeah. It's always good when we do shows like this, and we like, people think, he's not even on the database. That's the good thing. That's the whole idea here. Find a player that you're going to back. Avi, Keith's given us a very in-depth talk about him, so I just want to ask you, if you know anything of him, and two, he's not on the database yet, you could really get ahead of the curve here. Is he someone you consider for your portfolio?
100%. Again, Keith mentioned it, I think, yesterday, and I quickly went on YouTube, and I know it's not the great, to look for a player, but the first thing that struck me was a Suarez Tevez type. Tevez was like that as well, wasn't he? Carlos Tevez, bit stocky up top, but you could, play those balls through someone's legs and, like, sort of off the shins and whatnot. He looks good. Again, with Uruguay, it's like you said, that final phase of sort of Suarez and Cavani we thought like the likes of Nicolas Lodeiro, who Keith will know, Gaston Ramirez, you thought they were the next to take over the mantelpiece, but they haven't. They didn't quite do it. Although Nicolas Lodeiro, I'm a big fan of him because he was out here in the US. But yeah, I take Keith's word of the two players that he's mentioned, and Mateus Arez. It'll be intriguing to see what Alfie does and what kind of manipulation he does on the database and see where he's valued at.
He's gonna screw us, lads. I'm telling you.
I'm just the page comes on to talk about it. Yeah. I'll wait to sell the prices.
Barry Devaney says that 5 yards to be signing Keith up next. Listen, they haven't seen his buyout clause. They haven't seen his buyout clause yet. But look, it's a player that's not on the database, and as I said, people do say like, "Oh, he's not on the. Oh, can I even get him?" He will end up on the database. Don't worry. That's why we're here. We're looking to recommend players that some you don't, some you never heard of, some nobody's ever heard of apart from Keith watching telly at night at 4 in the morning on some mad Argentinian channel. But that's what this game is about. It's about finding somebody, backing them and going, listen, 5 yards, get him on the database, let him price him up. But you're confident that even if I buy him at that price, I know he's going to go through the roof. So, it's not that the price is immaterial, but it is to an extent, because if they throw a 25 million at him now, come the end of the week, Keith's going, he's going to be deadly. He's going to be worth 50 in a year's time or 2 years' time. It's all good. His progress is going to be relative to his value, so you're flying. I'm delighted with that. I'm delighted he's not on the database though, because we give 5 yards some work to do now, don't we? Which is good, and that's what we're here for. Delighted with that. The last one, and the last sort of rivalry we have, and I left this one to last. I think this one's really good, and I don't know if it's a split opinion, but I think it should. It's Saka off Arsenal and Neto off Wolves. And Avi, I'll come to you first. I think this is tight to call. I think Neto gets a lot of plaudits, but I will put this to you. I think Saka needs a move, and if he moves, I think he could go to the absolute top. Avi.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of it because it is a very tough call. Thanks, Alfie, for this one. Saka, well, Liverpool laid out the carpet for him, didn't they? When they wanted to sign, he was on. People didn't know whether he was going to sign a new contract with Arsenal, but he has signed that 3-4 year contract. He looks settled in London, Gav. I don't think he will be moving in the next 4 to 5 years. Neto, however, Alfie, before I say something on Neto, what's the price for the both of them, if I may ask?
So Neto is 45 million and Saka is up at 54.
Yeah, and that's made my decision. It's Neto all day. I think Neto gets a big move, and I think Neto will do serious numbers in the next year or so. Get a move away from Wolves. He's a 15 goals, 15 assists for me. I think he's dangerous from the left. He can even go on the right. He's a top talent. Saka's good, but I just don't see him leaving anywhere, Gav, at the moment. I think he'll be where he is at the moment with Arsenal, whereas Neto, he's got another level in him.
I disagree, Avi. I disagree. I think circumstance at Arsenal. Saka knows already how good he is. All right. And I think all it'll take is I don't think Arsenal are having a great season. I know I'm saying that as a Liverpool fan, that the season's falling down around me, but they're not having a good season. I don't really have much confidence in that manager, and I know he signed a new deal, but he left it very late to do that. All right,
he did.
And I think Saka. I think if things don't go right at Arsenal, Saka will just look and go, I'm out of here, because I know Chelsea will pay for me. I know Liverpool will pay for me. City will pay for me. United will pay for me. And then you go into the likes of Germany, Spain, Italy, whatever it might be. I think he's a fantastic talent. I think Neto is as well. I think this is a really, really tough one to call. The pricing is interesting, though, with Saka up above Neto at the moment, because Neto is getting a lot of plaudits. Keith, what way are you swaying on this? Because I think if you were to map their careers, I think they could come very, very close to each other.
I think one will, no matter what happens, is going to have a big move and a good career, and I think one of them could fall off a cliff. And I think Saka could fall off a cliff, and I think Neto will have an excellent career. I think Saka is a brilliant player. Saka risks being Arsenal. He risks staying there too long. Shawnee made a point in the chat that he should follow the Sterling route and just force a move. Couldn't agree more. I think that will be key to Saka's career, because, you know, he's not on this level. Ainsley Maitland-Niles was highly fancied last year and has just died a death at Arsenal, and he's gone out now to West Brom. He's getting Allardyce as we speak. And Saka, the worry for me is if he could have got out there in the summer, and we were all over him.
I was amazed he signed the new deal.
Yeah, and that to me is the thing. I think if he got out of Arsenal, I think that you're talking about a player that, you know, let's say he'd have gone to Liverpool, either got games at Liverpool, he'd have developed. I think he becomes a much better player. Obviously, I was going to say, in around the winning environment, we've stunk the place out this year. Circumstances or whatever we can say. But I think he's a player that, you know, his environment is going to impact on him. I hope it doesn't, because he's really, really good. But I just think he could be one that he could sink in the situations in. You know, Jack Wilshere, for example.
You'd have to put a time limit on it for him, really, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Well, that's
you'd
it.
You'd have to say, listen, he gives it, and I know he's only signed a new deal, but he gives it another year, and then you go
2 years.
out of there.
2 years. Anything more than 2 years there, I think, and he's Jack Wilshere. I think he needs to get that move. Whereas if you look at Neto's getting that move. Do you know what I mean? Neto's
he is
doing
100%.
well. Neto's getting that move now in the summer, and if that's the Liverpool, I'm not going to be unhappy if we were to bring in a Pedro Neto into their front line as an ancillary option to come in off the bench. I just think for the game purposes, yeah, I think Neto is a Champions League player waiting, and I think Saka could be. Let's say Saka's, you know, if you'd ask me who the better player is, it's hard. Saka's very versatile. Plays fullback, plays on the wing, plays midfield.
Could that be his downfall, Kiki? Sorry to interrupt you. Could that be his downfall, though, Saka's?
Isn't it?
At a young age, playing too many left wing back, centre mid, left wing. Could that be his downfall?
But that's where the similarity, like Shawnee said earlier, with Sterling comes in, because Sterling turns up at Liverpool, right, and he's running amok in the underage football. He turns up. I'll never forget the day he plays away at Hull in 13-14, and people thought he'd never play for Liverpool again because he was awful, right? And then he just hits something with Suarez and Sturridge and goes off on one. But then if you notice, the following season, Raheem Sterling plays right back for Liverpool the following season. Right fucking back, right? And what happens? He gets disillusioned, he goes, but now where is he? He's a wide forward for Man City. Sometimes he plays a false nine, and he just knows his game. And I can see Saka being very, very similar. Neto's had a move to Wolves. I think it's a very difficult one to choose. I think, regardless of both values, I think both of them will go way above those values. I genuinely think they will. Alfie, what's your feeling on these two? Because you've given me this rivalry, so obviously something in your head has said, you know, are you surprised at those pricing with Neto below Saka? Is that the English premium again?
Well, I don't know. I think I'm going to have to break character on this, because when I put this to you, I couldn't believe that anyone would pick Neto. As highly as I rate him, I thought it was a really one-horse race on this one. I think, as much as I understand the argument that Saka's played every position and it could be his downfall, he hasn't played kind of outside the front three all season. You know, he's right up there. He's in the England squad. He's been Arsenal's main player for over 6 months now. I'd be surprised if he signed a 5-year contract without some sort of clause in it. So I wouldn't really worry about a move if they weren't to get Champions League.
Like failure to get Champions League, yes, he's entitled to move for a certain amount of money, or he's entitled to talk to other clubs. And once you're entitled to talk to another club, you know what's going to happen. I think why Liverpool fans in particular are big on Neto is he reminds them, and he reminds me a little bit of Suarez. And what I mean by that is he's all action. He's head down. He runs with it. He doesn't get thrown off the ball. He's not the biggest physically, but he uses himself very, very well. And I think that's where even the running style a little bit and reminds me of Suarez. And I think that's why Liverpool fans are big on him. But I think it's a very interesting comparison. And I genuinely think if I'm looking at that game and I'm looking at them prices, I'm saying I'm surprised Saka's above Neto. I will say that, but I think both of them, I think, could be really, really good investments in this game. They're definitely two to watch. We're going to finish it up, lads, but let you know, Arizo isn't on the database, but the lads of 5 yards, when we do come up with these players, do their best to get them on ASAP. Kieran in turn is in the chat. He's our man that looks after I suppose, our portfolio of scout reports and stuff like that. He's the one that writes up most of them, submits them, and if they don't have a player that he comes up with, he follows it up and stuff like that. And to be honest with you, it's going quite well. He sent me a list the other day of the players, and there's a bit of profit there. There's a little profit. So the players at the moment are Florian Wirtz, Matthias Saracho, Cade Gordon, THIAGO Almeida, Stilas Wangambatuke. I always struggle with that. Alexander Buske and Buxa, and Danielle Mallon. There was one other player added as well, who he told me about, Christopher Nkunku from Leipzig. Yeah, of course, who played against Liverpool last week. Let us know. Keith is going to do a report on KO, aren't you, Keith? Avi's going to do one on Conrad de la Fonte, and they're going to be both given to Kieran to put up onto our scout report on the website. The one with Risa, we're going to have to wait, of course, until he gets on the database. But I'm sure we'll get Keith doing double jobs now. He can do his. That's what he gets for bringing up players we don't know. He can do. So Keith, yeah, for being a smart ass, Keith gets to do 2 reports. But as I said, 5 yards are working hard on the licensing issues with regards to the Ireland and America. But look, if you just enjoy watching this show, come along. We're trying to educate. Not educate is the wrong word. We're trying to bring people closer to these players that you might not know. I hate saying that I'm educating you, because I'm not. It just doesn't sit right with me. But to be honest with you, like, you know, there's players here that I've never heard of, and I go off and look at them then. And Keith's great for that. Avi, Gar, who will be on this show on the next episode, Grizz, they're all great. Shawnee, they're all brilliant. Are bringing these players to you. So just watch it, enjoy it. If you're able to access the game, absolutely access it. Have a look. We keep posting up all the players we do scout reports on, and we keep posting up our list of scout reports that we've done, and we're going to continue to do so. We've really enjoyed it so far, and just those names kind of stick in my head, and you kind of start following them. How are they doing and stuff like that? So it's really, really good. Alfie, we're going to come back next week, aren't we, and have another go at this?
Yeah, we are. I mean, in the meantime, yeah, the scout reports are great to do. It's a good way to kind of get into it. If you don't want to put money behind it, you can still win prizes. So I guess it won't be long until we see Daytrippers team at the top of that table.
Hopefully. And don't forget, if you can find 5 yards on Twitter, they're on Instagram as well, and you know they throw up loads of interest and stuff, and there does be prizes, doesn't there? Like you can win vouchers at weekends and stuff like that. If you predict, the one I remember was the FA Cup one. Will the Minnow score in this game? And I put it in through the LFC Daytrippers thing. You just had to hit yes or no, and I was like, oh, I wonder how I done. I got none of them right. None of them. It was a mad FA Cup weekend. Yeah, it was a mad weekend. So, but look, make sure you follow them on their social media as well. The link is in the description for their website and stuff like that. And look, we're having fun doing this, and at the same time, we're having fun getting Keith to do loads of work and Kieran to do loads of reports as well. And of course, it's on their website, so people can go in and check out our reports, and if that name is in their head, they can go and find them. So it's always good to do. We will be back with this show next week. We'll finalise a day. Later on this week, we'll finalise a day for next week. But it's been really, really, really enjoyable doing this today, I have to say. Liverpool are brutal at the minute, but this sort of stuff takes it away, and it's really, really good. Just to let people know, we have a quiz coming up tomorrow night with the midweek fix with Jamie. It's me and Shawnee versus Keith, and Grizz versus Matt from Tottenham Blog, and Rob from the Last Minute Winner podcast. So it's a team event tomorrow night in the quiz. Thursday night we're doing a charity draw for Keane. Friday night is the Friday forecast, which our new host Chris Brack. So make sure you go and check all them things out. But most importantly, make sure you go and check out 5yards.co.uk. Alfie, it's been an absolute pleasure as always, and I can't wait already to see you next week.
Cheers.
Good stuff. Keith, well done. No one player that's not on the database. You just keep staying up till all hours in the morning and watching all that mad football.
That 14s. That's it.
Yeah. You'll have a fella that'll only be issued with his birth cert next week, and you'll have his name down. Avi, thanks a million all the way from sunny California.
Thanks, Gav. Thanks for having me on.
Good stuff. That has been the Scout Report with 5yards.co.uk. Make sure you check out all our shows this week, and of course, make sure you're back for episode 4 next week. Over and out.